Hello and a very warm welcome to today's session brought to you by Team Textbook Super Coaching. I hope all of you are doing really well. देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से स्टार्ट करते हैं. आज का सेशन काफी ब्रीफ रहने वाला है because I will be introducing you to 5 important short story writers. हम short story writers को periodic classification के साथ कवर करेंगे. आज हम लोग modern short story को कवर करेंगे wherein we are going to be of course talking about कैसे modern short story का जो tradition है रुडयार्ड किपलिंग हो गए, दे आर आल्सो कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टुवर्ड्स मॉडर्निज्म ओवरऑल. लेकिन डबलिनर्स बाय जेम्स जॉयस, वर्जीनिया वुल्फ की स्टोरीज, कैथरीन मैंसफील्ड की स्टोरीज, हाउ दे आर अर्नेस्ट हेमिंग्वे की शॉर्ट स्टोरीज, हाउ दे आर एक्चुअली catapulting this entire tradition of short stories into a mega tradition. और आज अगर आप अपने पेपर्स को उठा के देखेंगे तो काफी सारे आपके क्वेश्चंस डायरेक्टली शॉर्ट स्टोरीज से पूछे जाते हैं. देयर आर मल्टीपल एंथोलॉजीज जिसके अंदर बेस्ट सेलिंग 50 बेस्ट सेलिंग शॉर्ट स्टोरीज होंगी. उल्टा इसके दूसरे पार्ट के अंदर वी आर गोइंग टू बी कवरिंग अ लॉट ऑफ अदर राइटिंग्स एज वेल. गुड इवनिंग देवशीष, गुंजन, जामर, विष्णु, गायत्री, मीनाक्षी, सिमर, देवाश्री, फातिमा. Good evening Wilfran, good evening. Yes, wishing everyone a very happy International Women's Day as well, and of course there's Mahashivratri as well. Okay, great. चलिए देरी नहीं करते हुए let's just quickly get started. Like I said, आपको यहाँ पर दो तीन चीजें याद रखनी है. सबसे पहले तो याद रखिएगा दैट शॉर्ट स्टोरी इज बिकमिंग एन इम्पॉर्टेंट ट्रेडिशन. मॉडर्निज्म में इसकी पकड़ जो है वो और ज्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट हो जाती है. वी आर एबल टू सी दैट हाउ दिस एंटायर ट्रेडिशन, हाउ दिस एंटायर कैनन एक्चुअली ग्रोज फर्दर, how we are able to see that there is a complete growth that you're able to see. And modernism जो एक विक्टोरियन एज की तरफ रिएक्शन था, short stories became a very easy canon through which people were actually able to articulate their voices, they were able to speak about their concerns. मॉडर्निज्म का जो मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थीम ऑफ एलियनेशन है वो कहीं ना कहीं आप देख पाते हो कि शॉर्ट स्टोरीज कवर करते हैं. तो इंट्रोडक्शन टू शॉर्ट स्टोरी में आज हम लोग वी आर प्राइमरीली लाइक आई सेड we will be looking at modernism and short story, and I will be telling you about these 5 important short story writers. That is going to be our broad scope of discussion, our broad area of discussion जो हम लोग आज cover करेंगे. Okay, now let us just quickly get started. Let us just quickly get started to introduction to short stories. Before हम लोग proper introduction to short stories समझते हैं, we also need to remember that there is a very beautiful tradition of short stories जो 19th century में pave हो रहा है. And this 19th century, particularly in America as well as in Britain, is extremely crucial for the development of short stories. तो अगर आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है कि शॉर्ट स्टोरी के रूट्स कहाँ पर हैं, so this is a very basic question that is often asked, that roots कहाँ पर हैं, where are the roots of short stories. एक्चुअली शॉर्ट स्टोरीज की रूट्स आपको गॉथिक लिटरेचर के अंदर मिलती हैं. सो रूट्स ऑफ शॉर्ट स्टोरीज किधर हैं? रूट्स ऑफ शॉर्ट स्टोरीज आर इन गॉथिक राइटिंग ट्रेडिशन वे बैक टू कासल ऑफ ओट्रांटो. सो कासल ऑफ ओट्रांटो के अंदर आप क्या देख पा रहे हो, दैट कासल ऑफ ओट्रांटो, हु इज राइटिंग कासल ऑफ ओट्रांटो, who is writing Castle of Otranto? Horace Walpole. Who is writing it? Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, Tessin. All right. Horace Walpole is the one who's writing it. Horace Walpole is the one who's writing it. कहीं ना कहीं गॉथिक राइटिंग्स जो हैं ये एक तरह से एक बेसिक इम्पेटस देती हैं, स्टोरी बताती हैं, कंडेंस्ड फॉर्मेट में बता रही हैं. एंड व्हाट आर यू एबल टू सी? यू आर एबल टू सी दैट बोथ द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट अमेरिकन वर्जन्स ऑफ गॉथिक राइटिंग्स, दैट इज Nathalie Hawthorne and Edgar Allan Poe. So American जो components है of Gothic writings, that is Hawthorne and Edgar Allan Poe. So आप क्या देख पाते हो, Hawthorne as well as Edgar Allan Poe, ये दोनों के दोनों वर्क्स को क्या कंसिडर किया जाता है, गॉथिक राइटिंग्स कंसिडर किया जाता है. They are the ones who are actually utilizing, they are the ones who are actually utilizing this form even better. ठीक है. और याद है आपको Washington Irving, the American writer, is writing sketches, right? Sketches, sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon. So sketches हो गई, आपकी ये gothic writings हो गई, tales हो गए, right? So all of these, so gothic writings is basically one source. Let me use another colored pen so that you will be able to differentiate. साथ ही साथ में आपका tradition of tales, writing sketches, sketches लिखना, tales लिखना. Washington Irving sketchbook लिख रहे हैं 1820 के अंदर sketchbook आ रहा है. American writings में we had looked at it also. Hawthorne क्या लिख रहे हैं? Twice told tales. ये क्वेश्चन आपका एग्जाम में आता भी है. Twice told tales. Twice Told Tales is by Hawthorne. That is what you are able to see. और ये अर्विंग के sketches में Rip Van Winkle, Legend of Sleepy Hollows, वो सारे के सारे वर्क्स, वो सारे के सारे वर्क्स आपका एक तरह से मॉडर्निज्म शॉर्ट स्टोरीज, जो 5 इंपॉर्टेंट राइटर्स मैं आपको मॉडर्निज्म शॉर्ट स्टोरी के आज करवाऊंगी, ये सारे के सारे राइटर्स आपके इन्हीं से ही जुड़े हुए हैं, ठीक है। और साथ में प्लीज याद रखिएगा, नॉट जस्ट दैट, इवन Thackeray was writing Vanity Fair. Thackeray was giving novel The Loose Baggy Monsters an important shape. Even Thackeray plays a very critical role over here. Let me use another colored pen to actually put that across as well. आप यहाँ पे क्या देख पाते हो, that even writers like Thackeray, they are the ones. So Thackeray is writing the Book of Snobs. The Book of Snobs. द बुक ऑफ स्नॉब्स थैकरे लिख रहे हैं, कब आ रहा है बुक ऑफ स्नॉब्स, 1846 में आ रहा है, as well as Sketches by Boz by Charles Dickens. All of these works, so you know, Hawthorne, Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, Washington Irving, ये सारे के सारे जो राइटर्स हैं, ये सारे के सारे राइटर्स आपकी sketches, tales, gothic writings, these are your roots of short stories. आपको ये भूलना नहीं है, this is where your roots of short stories are actually coming in. But it's just not in Britain and in America that short story as a format develops and evolves. आप लोग एक और trace क्या देख पाते हैं? We are able to see that even in the European region, people like Gogol हो गए, या आपका Turnjeev is writing very important work. What is the name of the work? It is called the sportsman sketches. This is called the sportsman sketches. The sportsman sketches. This is by Turnjeev. So Gogol and Turnjeev, दोनों के दोनों, Gogol as well as Turnjeev, दोनों के दोनों, they are also contributing to the tradition of tale. तो I hope ये clear है. Short stories के roots कहाँ पर हैं? Short stories के roots आपकी Gothic tales के अंदर है. Hawthorne, Edgar Allan Poe, major proponents of short stories. आपके टेल्स हो गए, आपके स्केचेस हो गए, स्केचेस बाय बॉज बाय चार्ल्स डिकेंस, या फिर द बुक ऑफ स्नॉब्स बाय थैकरे हो गया, ये सारे के सारे बिकम द प्रीकर्सर ऑफ द शॉर्ट स्टोरी फॉर्मेट दैट यू आर एबल टू सी. तो ये पॉइंट आपको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा. अच्छा, एक और चीज जो एक क्वेश्चन आपके एग्जाम में भी आता है, व्हाट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टर्निंग पॉइंट, राइट? अगर आपको टर्निंग पॉइंट देखना होगा एक तरीके से, विच इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टर्निंग पॉइंट, विच इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टर्निंग पॉइंट दैट वी आर एबल टू सी in the development of short stories, before I go ahead and take you to a tour of understanding who are these important short story writers. टर्निंग पॉइंट 19th सेंचुरी शॉर्ट स्टोरीज का क्या है? एक पर्टिकुलर डेट, जैसे हम कहते हैं ना, जॉन कीट्स के सबसे ज्यादा वर्क्स जो आ रहे हैं 1819 में आ रहे हैं, या 1850 is considered to be the annus mirabilis for Tennyson because he is getting married, his in memoriam is coming, he's also getting poet laureateship. ठीक उसी तरह से शॉर्ट स्टोरीज के लिए आपका टर्निंग पॉइंट कौन सा था? 1842. Now what is so special about 1842? Because यहाँ पर Edgar Allan Poe is constructively contributing. Twice Told Tale by Hawthorne is also coming in, right? So you are able to see कि Twice Told Tale के ऊपर Edgar Allan Poe is trying to give important analysis of short story के short story एक ही sitting में complete हो जानी चाहिए. Overcoat आपका 1842 के अंदर आता है. So all those things of course become important, okay? And please don't forget, it's just not Hawthorne, it's just not your Washington Irving, it's just not Hawthorne and Edgar Allan Poe, but it is also writers like Gidi Maupassant. Why is Gidi Maupassant important? Why is Gidi Maupassant so important? Gidi Maupassant is actually one of the most important proponents of short story writings. Maupassant की किस तरह की short stories आ रही हैं? आप लोगों ने I think अपने remember क्लास 9th में सीबीएसई बोर्ड में नेकलेस हम लोग पढ़ते थे 1885. ये काफी ज्यादा फेमस नेकलेस, जहां पर दैट वुमन हु एस्पायर्स and because she aspires, therefore her husband takes her to a beautiful ball, and to wear beautiful dress and ornament with the ball, she borrows an ornament, and that ornament is actually artificial, but she misplaces it, and how she's spending her entire life to just recover that. तो वो चीज भी आप एक तरह से देख पाते हैं in these kind of writing readings overall. So गीदी माँ पसंद हो गए. So ये सारे के सारे writers are contributing to the evolution. Anton Chekhov बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से contribute करते हैं. The fact that he's writing Three Sisters, and the way that he's leading to the development. So of course 19th century short stories को हम लोग cover करेंगे. But like I said, आज हमारा प्राइमरी कंसर्न क्या है? आज हमारा प्राइमरी कंसर्न है टू एक्सप्लेन यू अबाउट दीज 5 important short story writers who are coming in, these 5 important short story writers who are trying to make a mark all together when it comes to modernism and short story tradition. ठीक है, सबसे पहला आपको क्या याद रखना है? जेम्स जॉयस का डबलिनर्स, राइट? सो जेम्स जॉयस इज वन ऑफ आवर फंडामेंटल राइटर्स ऑल टुगेदर. 1882 to 1941. 1941, the same year where Virginia Woolf also passed away. She committed suicide, of course. Now, why is Dubliners so important? Dubliners to आपका 1914 के अंदर आ रहा है. It is trying to tell us about the ordinary lives of the Irish people, right? जो ordinary people हैं in Dublin, story cycle के format में ordinary lives के बारे में हमें बताया जा रहा है. We are able to hear about ordinary lives. We are able to hear about ordinary lives altogether. तो एक तरह से this story becomes definitive of modern short story tradition. अब आपके questions जो आते हैं, कौन कौन से questions आते हैं? The sisters हो गई Dubliners के collection के अंदर. The sisters, Evelyn, they were also published all together. Final story Dubliner में कौन सी है? Final story Dubliner में The Dead है. The Dead. So childhood से adolescent तक ordinary movement that you are able to see in Dubliner. There is a theme of paralysis that you are able to look at. That's the modernist theme. There is a theme of alienation that you are able to look at. And please remember, Ireland was a Catholic majority. Ireland was a Catholic majority. So the religious split between Protestants and Catholics was easily seen over here. तो ये चीज आपको पता चलती है, and how Irish people were trying to re-establish their identity through folklore altogether. That is what they actually wanted to do overall. तो ये pointers भी आपको थोड़े से ध्यान में रखने पड़ेंगे when we are looking at all of these writers. Okay, so please remember, James Joyce is a very important figure of short stories. His Dubliners is important. Joyce introduces what is famously called as your epiphany. Joyce क्या introduce करते हैं? Epiphany, a sudden moment of realization that you are having. That is what James Joyce is actually incorporating all together. ठीक है, तो ऑफ कोर्स इसके कुछ कुछ पार्ट्स हैं, कुछ कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स हैं जो हम लोग डिस्कस भी करने वाले हैं. बट डबलिनर्स एंड जेम्स जॉयस एज अ शॉर्ट स्टोरी राइटर इज द फर्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट मॉडर्न शॉर्ट स्टोरी राइटर जो आपको ध्यान में रखना है. सो डबलिनर्स ऑफ कोर्स बिकम्स इंपॉर्टेंट. प्लीज कीप दैट इन माइंड. अच्छा, एक ना वर्क है आपका एन इनकाउंटर बॉय नैरेटर एक्सपीरियंसेस अ चाइल्ड अब्यूजर एंड दिस इनकाउंटर has a key change. तो एपिफनी का एक बहुत ही बेहतरीन एग्जाम्पल आपको मिलता है एपिफनी का डबलिनर्स के सो जेम्स जॉयस का वर्क इनकाउंटर के अंदर आपको एपिफनी, यू आर एबल टू सी एपिफनी का एक परफेक्ट एग्जाम्पल. यू आर एबल टू सी एपिफनी का परफेक्ट एग्जाम्पल ऑल टुगेदर. Yes, absolutely right, Shrabani. Jhumpa Lahiri's Interpreter of Maladies. बहुत सारी शॉर्ट स्टोरीज हैं, इनको पार्ट्स में हम लोग अच्छी तरह से सेमिनली कवर करेंगे ऑल टुगेदर. नाउ Virginia Woolf की short stories, why are they so important? Virginia Woolf again 1882 to 1941. When we are looking at Virginia Woolf, why is she important? Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, Waves, जैसे works लिखने वाली. Now what is the major contribution that we are able to see? We are able to see that Virginia Woolf was a key member of the Bloomsbury Club, right? अब Virginia Woolf का जो assessment था of short stories, right? You were able to see कि she was also trying to analyze modern fiction, but most important work हमारे लिए क्या है? Kew Gardens. ये क्वेश्चन आपका एग्जाम्स में आता भी है. यू हैव टू रिमेंबर अबाउट क्यू गार्डन्स. नाउ व्हाट इज द थिंग अबाउट क्यू गार्डन्स? 1919 के अंदर देयर इज नो प्लॉट डेवलपमेंट एट ऑल. देयर आर जस्ट आइडियाज दैट आर गिवन टू अस ऑल टुगेदर बाय वर्जीनिया वुल्फ. तो वुल्फ का जो स्टोरीज हैं, दे आर एक्सपेरिमेंटल. you are also able to see short stories like the haunted house. The haunted house, very important. This haunted house, why was it such an important short story? Because it was trying to tell you that it's very difficult to untangle the unreal from the real. अभी हम लोग reality experience कर रहे हैं. We are having a class that is going on. You're making your notes all together. You're trying to understand short story as a format altogether, the roots of short story, the evolution of short story, and looking at 5 important prototypes of modern short story. अब इस speech में maybe there is a there is something that you're recollecting, and then therefore there is no correlation between the real and the unreal. That is what was basically being told all of to everybody. So again, Virginia Woolf, the haunted house, Kew Gardens, ये सारे के सारे Virginia Woolf के बहुत ही important creations हो जाते हैं of short stories that we are actually able to look at. Experimental format that Virginia Woolf is using. Also, please remember, when Virginia Woolf was writing towards the end of the Victorian age, there were new ways of processing literature. New ways of processing literature. Virginia Woolf बिल्कुल against the style of writing followed by H.G. Wells and Arnold Bennett. तभी इनको materialist कहती हैं. तभी इनको क्या कहती हैं? ये आर्नल्ड बेनेट और एच.जी. वेल्स को क्या बोलती हैं? She calls them as materialists, that they are not spiritualists. Modern writers are spiritualists because they are able to actually capture the reality altogether. So ये भी चीज आपके लिए important हो जाती है. Now, Ernest Hemingway is actually by far one of the most important modern short story writers after James Joyce, to be very honest, right? So Ernest Hemingway का क्या importance है? Get the most out of the least. This is what was his mantra, which is so true, right? So what was he basically trying to say, which is like the thumb rule: get the most, get the most, get the most out of the least, out of the least. This is what he used to say. This is what all of us want to do. We want to do smart work. You want to study for 1 hour, but make sure that you're able to get knowledge worth say 24 hours altogether. So get the most out of the least. That is the mantra. That is what he said. And Tabhi, he had a very minimalistic style of writing. He followed something called the iceberg technique. Iceberg technique tha, you were only able to see the tip of the iceberg, but there was much more to his writings altogether that you were able to look at. तो ये भी चीज आपको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा, that how this the figure of Ernest Hemingway being a part of the lost generation. Acha, by the way, please remember this. What is he considered to be? He is a prominent member of the lost generation group. The lost generation group. Farewell to Arms इन्होंने लिखा हुआ है. अच्छा, अब इनकी short stories important कौन सी हैं? In our time, in our time, in our time, 1925, men without women. ये questions आपके as it is पूछे जाते हैं. Men without women, men without women. Men without women 1927. अच्छा, by the way, please याद रखिएगा, इनका थोड़ा सा masculinity को highlight करने वाला style था. You were able to see that his style was certainly being replicated. जब ये short stories लिख रहे थे तो ये सारे के सारे aspects आ रहे थे all together in his writings, and that is the reason he's talking about the ordinary in an ordinary way, in a very simple fashion, yet his short stories or even his works have a very deep penetrating insight altogether that they are offering. ठीक है, तो in our time, like I said, in our time ये important short story collection है. Men without women आपका एक important short story collection है. He is, like I said, known for his macho attitude के लिए जाने जाते थे. He was also somebody who had this so called big game hunting. Big game hunting के अंदर he is of course known for hunting, the masculine pursuits altogether. That is something which is coming in. तो ये दोनों के दोनों works अर्नेस्ट हेमिंग्वे के important short story collections हो जाते हैं. Now, D.H. Lawrence, surprisingly, he is only known for his novels and poems, but short stories is also something that D.H. Lawrence actually does a wonderful so-called act at. अच्छा, अब D.H. Lawrence के लिए हमें क्या क्या चीजें याद रखनी है? When you are talking about D.H. Lawrence, he was actually an innovator. Of course, The Rainbow, Women in Love, Sons and Lovers, Kangaroo, ये सारे के सारे works ये लिख रहे थे. But it's surprising that a lot of people ignore, but he had over 70 short stories under his belt. Right? He wrote in conventional structure, simple plain manner जो आप देख पा रहे हैं. अच्छा, इन्होंने कौन कौन सी short story collections लिखी हैं? The Prussian Officer, ये आपका क्वेश्चन आता है. The Prussian Officer 1914. England, My England has come so many times in your set exams as well. England, my England, England, my England. This is a short story collection. ये भी आपका 1914 के अंदर आ रहा है. The woman who rode away, 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 the woman who rode away. So what are you able to see? You are able to see that his short story collections are also there. He has written over 70 important critical short stories that you're able to see. In 70 short stories के अंदर आपकी जो most important short stories है वो कौन कौन सी हैं? You have Tickets Please. So he has written Tickets Please, Monkey Nuts, right? Tickets Please, Monkey Nuts. I'm sure all of you have had experiences where the monkey has come to you, to just take certain food articles that you are having. Fox is also again, something that he has written altogether. So आपको क्या पता चलता है? Tickets Please हो गए, या Monkey Nuts हो गए, या Fox हो गए, या फिर England My England short story collection हो गया. All of these works that you're able to see, ये 3 short story collections आपको याद रखनी है. ये 3 शॉर्ट स्टोरी कलेक्शंस आपको याद रखनी है. ये फेमस शॉर्ट स्टोरीज आपको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा. आइडेंटिफिकेशन के लिए भी आपसे पूछा जाता है. So you have to remember that D.H. Lawrence is also playing a very critical role. Now, our beloved, so to say, in short story writing, Katherine Mansfield. Now, why is Katherine Mansfield so important? Katherine Mansfield कितनी short stories लिख रही थी? 88 short stories were written by Katherine Mansfield, D.H. Lawrence writing 70 odd short stories that you were able to see. Now, what you were able to see is that there was a charm to capture your so-called life and times where, Katherine Mansfield was actually living. A garden party, तो I'm sure आप सब लोग ही answer कर पाते होंगे. Questions that come related to garden party. I hope garden party वाला question हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे YouTube पे इतनी बार करा है. Garden party and other stories. अच्छा, garden party and other stories कब आ रहा है? ये भी question एक बार आया है कि इनमें से कौन सा 1922 में नहीं है. इनमें से कौन सा 1922 में नहीं है? गार्डन पार्टी एंड अदर स्टोरीज 1922 में है, तो ये आपको याद रखना है. ब्लिस एंड अदर स्टोरीज, ब्लिस एंड अदर स्टोरीज, ब्लिस एंड अदर स्टोरीज, राइट. ब्लिस एंड अदर स्टोरीज, ब्लिस एंड अदर स्टोरीज आ रहा है, ये आपका 1920 में आ रहा है. Then there is also this work called In a German Pension, In a German Pension, right? In a German Pension, In a German Pension is also coming in. So what are you able to see? That Katherine Mansfield, just like Virginia Woolf, is a pioneering short story, is a pioneering modern writer, writing short stories, trying to tell you about the ordinary lives. अच्छा, ये किसके बारे में लिख रहे हैं? ये क्वेश्चन आपका आता है. What is Katherine Mansfield actually writing about? What is Katherine Mansfield actually writing about? Tremendous triples. किसके बारे में लिख रहे हैं? ऑर्डिनरी लाइफ को ये क्या कहते हैं? ट्रिमेंडस ट्रिफल्स. हम देखते हैं ना, हमारे पेरेंट्स कहते हैं घर पे इतना काम हो जाता है, ट्रिमेंडस ट्रिफल्स. तो इतने सारे जो काम आपके घर पे ही निकल आते हैं, तो ट्रिमेंडस ट्रिफल्स के बारे में, दैट इज व्हाट दे आर एक्चुअली ट्राइंग टू टेल यू. अ न्यू स्टाइल ऑफ राइटिंग wherein you're trying to explain the commonplace life, the ordinary life. So again, the garden party, another story, In a German Pension, Bliss and Other Stories, ये सारे के सारे important works आपके आ रहे हैं by Katherine Mansfield. Katherine Mansfield is trying to change, the life of Ma Parker. The life of Ma Parker. This is again another short story that Katherine Mansfield is writing. Prelude हो गया, At the Bay हो गया, काफी सारे आपके works Katherine Mansfield लिख रहे हैं. You have to keep that in mind. Now, extremely important and crucial, William Faulkner. Okay, the kind of writing, I'll just change the color of my pen. Yeah. So when we are looking at William Faulkner is of course critically important for your short story as well. He's an important American modernist writer, but he's also an important American modernist short story writer that we were able to see. He creates Yokna Patwa. Yokna Patwa को तो of course ये create कर ही रहे हैं. Yokna Patwa को तो of course he is creating, but he's known for his novels like The Sound and Fury, As I Lay Dying. But when we are talking about the short story format, what is the important contribution? He is trying to tell you that short story is not an elongated affair. He rather calls short story as boring. He rather says that it's just an act. It's just a discrepancy altogether. So he's got a very different style. He's got a very different way of understanding, short stories altogether. He said that this was a way through which, in between writing novels, I will try to make money. जैसे अभी recently एक reel आया था जिसमें वामिका गबी कह रही थी that I make Instagram reels to get money because then I don't have to do the films that I really get. अच्छा, अब कौन कौन सी क्वेश्चंस आपके आते हैं? द लायर इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट वर्क दैट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द पेन ऑफ फॉकनर. You're also able to see the liar, right? The liar, the bear, even dry September, और बहुत सारे और भी हैं, right? Dry September. So one second. Dry September. Then there are a lot of other short stories that William Faulkner has actually written that you're predominantly able to see. So again, how there is a completely contrasting view. It is not something that like Katherine Mansfield or James Joyce, you're using short story as an elevated genre altogether. You're predominantly trying to use short stories in order to say that I'm trying to make money in between while I'm writing my novels overall. तो ये चीज भी आपको थोड़ा सा ध्यान में रखना पड़ेगा. So Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, Katherine Mansfield, Virginia Woolf, T.H. Lawrence, all of these, James Joyce, all of these are important components of your modernist short story writing. So आज हम लोगों ने basically क्या करा है? I've given you a bird's eye view of modern short stories. I've tried to make sure that you understand कि कौन-कौन से writers आपके modern short story में important है, and you're also able to understand that how is the tradition of short story predominantly emerging. कैसे आपका the gothic writings are leading, your tales and sketches are leading, all of these are actually leading to the development of your short story as a genre, right? इसके crisp concise एक बार notes बना लीजिएगा. We will be continuing from here itself because short stories becomes an important topic overall, and there are a lot of these short stories that we can actually cover that we will be looking at. Fine. Please don't forget to review your concepts for the day, and in case if you're having any doubts, please feel free to let me know. Tomorrow I will catch up with all of you for the masterclass at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock की masterclass के लिए be prepared. I think today there was a little bit of disturbance, maybe because I was traveling, and even in the foundation batch class, there was a little bit of an issue. But anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. and then of course subsequently at 10:30, at 8:30 p.m. and at 10 p.m. also. Classroom students, you are having 2 classes tomorrow, and we'll be covering 17th century writings. Okay? चलिए, thanks everyone for joining. Take good care of yourselves. Please cover everything that we have looked at. We've not looked at drama today. I'm so sorry. We've looked at short stories. So please don't forget to cover short stories properly. Okay? Please don't forget to cover short stories properly. Please do cover short story, the basic genesis altogether. Okay? चलिए. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Take good care of yourselves. I'll catch up with all of you in the next session. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Iman, Fatima, Zamar, Ravi, Wilfran, Gunjan, Simar, Debashish, Ravi, Shabnam. Yes, good night, everyone. Yes, happy weekend. But there isn't any weekend for all of you. You people have classes. So I'm sorry for that. Huh? All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.